What's up, guys? Welcome to Invisible Walls. This is our second episode of the podcast that is all about breakthrough. I'm Larry Charles, half the team, other half on the other side of. If I can just break through.
You can't touch
me. Give me some. No, give me some.
All right, here we go.
Now we can.
This is Brandon Pham. Welcome to our second episode of Breakthroughs or Invisible Walls. Man, I keep saying Invisible Walls. I want to say Invisible Ball to the Walls. Maybe next time. Next time we will create that. But we're going to introduce our second guest of the show. Mm-hmm. This is a well-known guest from our other show, Game Dev Unchained, and many other events that we've thrown together like G-Ducks. But this is a clear demonstration that game developers actually have other things that they like doing.
Yeah, 100%.
And are experts at, right? I'm gonna say that with a lot of confidence. So with Derek Lieu on board, I think he's about to come on. Let's see. Do you hear us, Derek?
I do. Hello.
Right. What's up, Derek?
Perfect.
Welcome back for the first time.
Thanks for having me back.
And so the topic today is, of course, martial arts, right? And I think it'd be a perfect time to talk how that has been a part of your life.
Yeah. So just get started with my history, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So I first started practicing martial arts, I think, about 13 years ago. Mm-hmm. And it was when I was living in New York. The first thing I ever took was Hapkido lessons, which I kind of came to that martial art by playing Virtua Fighter and being like, which style looks cool? Mm-hmm. And I really liked Aoi. She does like the Aikido and the wrist locks and stuff like that. And I found a school that seemed to have like a mix of that and kicking, which is basically what Hapkido is. And I did that for like a year and a half, but I didn't end up liking the school that much. And what I found afterwards was this Chinese Kung Fu school, which what they teach, it's called Six Harmony Natural Style, or I'm probably going to botch the Chinese, but in Chinese, it's something like Liu He Ziranmen. And I studied that for about 5. Everything sounds legit in Chinese Kung Fu if you say it in Chinese. But I studied that there for 5 years or so. And I would say that kind of performs the basis of most of what I would like consider myself as a martial artist. And what happened after that was I moved to the West Coast. So I had to basically I practice on my own. What I would do, I would go to the park and just kind of drill what I remember, because there's still like tons of stuff that I knew from that school that I knew I was still not good at. Yeah. And I kind of didn't want to find a new school, at least right away, because of time constraints and money and all that stuff. So I just went to the park in the morning, like really early in the morning, to just practice for like an hour and a half. Mm-hmm. And now I do that, I try to do it most days of the week, so it's maybe 4 to 5 times a week.
Oh wow!
That I go in the morning.
That's a good commitment.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And I actually started teaching someone in the park about 3 years ago. This African American gentleman, my friend Warren. He's 67 or 68 now. Wow! He just started watching me doing my thing. He's like, "What are you doing?" And I was explaining to him, and he's saying, "Oh, cool. Do you teach?" And I was saying, no, but if you bring some sneakers and some sweatpants, I'll show you some stuff. And he's been showing up ever since. Mm-hmm. But the most recent development is about 7 months ago in LA, I started taking lessons at a Russian martial arts school, learning Sistema. This instructor is actually British. His name's Martin Wheeler. And that's been really, really interesting, kind of complement to what I had before with my Chinese Kung Fu. So that's like, in a nutshell, my history.
Yeah, that's good history. It's the fact that you're even giving back and teaching. I don't know if you're charging or not, but just anybody who has ever gotten any life experience, found value, and then shared, like there's always a respect that I have for that. In regards to this podcast about being about breakthrough, I want to try to identify some key points in your life where you know that the things that you've learned from martial arts like directly maybe contributed to happiness or success or just a better outcome than what assumedly would have happened had you not had the martial arts experience or the relationships with other martial artists, etc. So is there like a key moment in your life where you're like, man, I know for sure, had I not known what I knew at this time, this would have gone way different. Like, can we start with like the obvious was the use of a martial art in your life?
Yeah, I don't think there's any like exciting story. Like I've never
that's
gotten in
fine.
like a real fight with anyone. But I mean, just for physical well-being, there's just no comparison to me before taking martial arts and like since, because like for example, when I first took those Hapkido lessons, the first week or so, just from doing basic kicks, I literally could barely walk down the street because my thighs was killing me so much. And I was in New York. I realized that like just going up the subway stairs is way easier. I could just like, and then after I started taking lessons at the Chinese Kung Fu school, even after that class, my legs hurt again, even though I'd already been taking classes for like a year, because I guess they just worked me that much harder. But I think the biggest thing is just a lot of the lessons that you learn from taking martial arts, which are like just the slow incremental improvement of a thing. That's a really good lesson, because the thing that I like about Kung Fu or martial arts in general is that over time you see the increases, but like day to day, it's really, really hard to see that. But the other thing I say about it is that it's one of the only sort of creative things that I do where I kind of don't have to look at when I'm bad. By what I mean is, like, if I'm editing something like a trailer, like the rough cut, I'm looking at it, I'm like, this is terrible. But like if I do like a bad punch or a bad kick, it's over as soon as it's done. So I can just move on to the next thing. So I think it's a good lesson in like just, it's, you know, it's cliche, but like, you know, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And just having something that I can focus on each time and take like a little lesson from each class and be like, okay, I learned a little bit of this, I learned a little bit of this, and just adds up over time. And it's a really good feeling just to have just like a little spark of, like this thing clicked this one moment. Even if just like one like second out of an hour class, it's really valuable.
I definitely want to spend this time to like not only get to know your background and what the meaning of martial art means just to Derek, but to everyone at this table too, because I don't really know too much all of us right here around this table. So because Larry, I don't know too much of details about your back. I know you did boxing as a kid, but kind of like it'd be great for the viewers and listeners to kind of hear your background in martial arts as well.
Okay. So I don't know when or how martial arts was introduced to my life, but it was like instantly fell in love. Maybe Karate Kid, Daniel LaRusso, Cobra Kai, like the original, not the YouTube version. I remember I had like a Karate Kid birthday party. I was maybe like 5 or 6, something like that. Like had the little headbands and everything. But I've just always been enthralled by martial arts, Bruce Lee especially. And then even more so like Jim Kelly, seeing like a brown skin action hero, not just like a Dolomite or a Shaft, but like a badass who like knew martial arts, was doing the I was heavily influenced by media, I would say in the 80s, because what do you have to look at like for reference? A lot of WWE, you know, was my favorite, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. You know, anything Bruce Lee-esque, I was all about it. I would say that I also had a lot of bullying when I was younger. I'm a very big kid, and so that usually meant that like people didn't know that I was like 11, thinking I was 14. People didn't know that I was 8, thinking I was 12. And then, you know, you just out in parks, out playing basketball or whatever, and shit gets heated, especially back in the East Coast, Hartford, Connecticut.
We're talking about like fists being thrown and stuff.
I mean, you got into fights, like, but it's like
it's not pushes.
Adolescent fights, right? Like it wasn't like I didn't have any like real beat down, like 20 people trying to mess me up.
It's like
not
chest to
at
chest.
that age. This was just like 2 kids might like mess you up real quick. You go home bloody bruised, but you're not broken bones. You're not hospital. It wasn't that kind of stuff. It was just survival of the fittest in the ghetto. But you know, there were still limitations. Nobody tried to kill me. Nobody tried to like bang my head into like cement.
Right.
Like,
it wasn't like,
but it was
fucking
like,
with you.
It was like let's beat this kid's ass.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
So my martial arts career legitimately, I would say, started when my father put me in boxing as like a response to, I didn't really know how to defend myself very well. I was big, so I could like push and wrestle and like, but I didn't know proper form for punching. I didn't know about base. I didn't know about stamina. I didn't know about lining up targets or any sort of diffusionary techniques whatsoever. So mainly I give my credit to boxing first, because prior to boxing, parents both very busy. I'm moving between parents, never really in one place for more than a year and a half. You're not going to get very far in any sort of martial arts system if that's your commitment level. Like when my mom's finally free from work, she can take me to Tang Sudo. And like, oh, I got a yellow belt. Oh, I moved to dad's house. Now I'm in United Studios Self-Defense. Oh, I got a yellow belt. Oh, nope. Now I'm back to mom. And white belt all over again.
Right.
Boxing, though, is like, look, we're going to teach you like 8 punches, and then everything after that is defense, when, how, what to do, situational. There was no katas. There was no like advanced level of like things I had to memorize, other than you learn these punches, learn how to use the punches, learn when to use the punches, learn what to look for. It was very easy to get into, super low barrier of entry. Deep pool to master. So that's why I took to boxing very well, was because that skill set never had to reset. I could always apply it.
Right.
Started with boxing, loved any sort of like flashy kicking, like Taekwondo. So I wanted to take Taekwondo. I still want to get my black belt in Taekwondo. Moving forward to as an adult, I'm now in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I just recently started at Art of Jiu-Jitsu in Costa Mesa, California. So shout out to those guys over there at AOJ. Got a couple of world champion, or I think one brown belt turned black belt world champion there. So shout out to all the guys at AOJ. Thanks for putting up with my not knowing what to do, but also being very big, which is very dangerous in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I love those guys over there. But yeah, that's pretty much my career. My goal is, by the time I'm 60, my retirement job is to teach kids how to defend themselves, how to correct the mistakes that I had to live through without knowing what to do. I would love to be black belt in Taekwondo, black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and obviously still keeping my boxing. And if anybody ever wants to mess with me, whole different story now versus back then.
Right.
So that's my my spiel.
Right. I mean, that leads actually to what I ask most martial artists is like, do they ever have to use it on the street? Like the last Invisible Walls, we didn't plan for this, but I had an old friend who witnessed my first and only real fight, and that's the truth of it. It's a lot like fight. What do you call it? Fight Club, where nobody really fights anymore, right? Unless you really are looking for trouble. I mean, have you ever been in a situation where you had to fight in the streets?
You're asking me?
Yeah. I'm asking you, Derek.
The closest thing that I can think of is, because I just haven't lived in dangerous places, I guess, or just not been in those situations. But the closest thing was, so when I walked to the park early in the morning, it's like not quite a mile. Anyway, so I'm walking to the park, and I hear this like rustling in the bushes behind me, and then this guy
random encounter.
Right. Basically, this guy comes out. This white guy comes out. He's got no shirt on, and it was like 50, 60 degrees. 50, 60 degrees, and he's coming out. I'm like, oh, maybe this is a guy jogging with no shirt on. And then, but I'm still like looking, and he's like clearly headed straight towards me. And I'm like, And then that's the moment where it's like, is this really happening? And I hear him like mumbling. He's like, shirt. And I was thinking, oh my God, does he want my shirt? Like my jacket that I was wearing? And then he just kept getting closer. And as soon as he got closer, I just started running. I was like, nope, peace. And I didn't even run that far, but I started running, and then I like looked back and he wasn't following me. I'm like, okay,
good.
Smart move. That's that.
Smart move.
That's actually like probably the most realistic scenario where you ever, because we grew up watching these kung fu movies, and anytime anybody engages with us, our answer is to use Tiger Claw, or like everything that we've learned in our repository is like, finally, I'm gonna but most realistically, if someone's running at me shirtless, I'm thinking bath salts. I'm thinking this dude is gonna bite my face off, and I'm getting the fuck out of here. It's not worth getting zombie scratched and being infected, right? And honestly, I advise anybody who even is a martial artist knows first and foremost, but in the regular public now, where we're in the MMA era, where everyone knows a little bit of something, to just just leave the scene, dude, because you don't know if that dude has other shirtless dudes in those bushes. You know, you might be gang attacked, or like somebody might be, sneaking up from behind you. You have no idea what's going on, and it's not like the movies at all. Things can go really bad really fast.
Yeah. We're in the era of public pride smashing.
Yeah.
Is what I call it.
Yeah.
Like, an altercation starts, cameras whip out, there has to be a conclusion, or else both of you have your pride smashed. Like, oh, pussies. Oh, you guys are, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Crowd is egging people on.
Yeah.
No one is there to, like, I don't want to say no one, because there are good people out there who will, like, try to diffuse situations, but I hate that I'm seeing, like, public pride smashing, which is egging on these situations.
I actually feel
like,
safer if there's a crowd around me and I have to fight. You know what I mean? Versus me mano a mano and no one else to witness this. Like, I could die.
In that scenario, if the two
yeah.
outcomes are a fight is going to happen regardless, you're saying you do feel safer in a
crowd that I know, like, all right,
someone here
not
is gonna,
their crowd, right?
Yeah,
if it's the fighters' crowd, then of course I feel in danger.
Yeah.
But if it's like the general public, random people gathering, I feel like, all right, we have a ring. We have a fucking ring now.
At some point, someone's going to be like, he's had enough.
Yeah. Just Ip Man him down,
I guess what I'm getting at with the public pride smashing is that, like, somebody loses and it's like, oh, it's all over the internet. It's all over their Facebook. It's all over Twitter for months and weeks and months and weeks, years potentially. They could be hounded or shamed or humiliated. And that I see that as, like, pushing people to go too far, because they don't have a restraint, or they don't want the outcome to be like, oh damn, everyone's gonna watch me catch this L. You know what I mean?
Well, that's one perspective. The other perspective is like, watch to catch me on this W. It's like, someone get this, please. But of course, I've only been in one fight, and like you said, it's mostly for self-discipline, fitness, and just meditation, man. These are things that when I grew up doing martial arts, I didn't really appreciate as much until later, because everything that I've done in my career, personal fitness, has stemmed off from my early years dabbling in martial arts. And for me, though, like my adult years, it's been harder to keep up with it, because obviously you go to your default. If I need to keep up my cardio, go jogging real quick. And then if I need to do my strength fitness, I would go to the gym. But then martial art would be the third thing that I would do to, like, think about agility or all this other stuff. But it is like the foundation to cover all bases. And I should really be starting my day with that. But for some reason, I guess unless you're Bruce Lee, it's harder to do it by yourself. Like, even with punching my dummy, it doesn't feel the same.
I think...
Yeah, go ahead.
Something I didn't mention before is the other thing that it's really taught me is how to be relaxed in kind of normal everyday life. And I think that a lot of us sort of compartmentalize when our relaxation happens. So it's kind of like, okay, it's yoga class. I mean, I don't take yoga, and I don't know people who, like, a lot of people take yoga, so I can't, like, actually speak for them. But from what I see from, like, the culture, it seems like it's like, okay, meditation and yoga, that's when you relax. And then every other time it's busy. But, like, in martial arts, a thing that you learn, or at least I learned, was that when your body is, like, tense and hard like this, then you get tired so fast. And for a lot of us, that's kind of like our everyday, like at the computer, we're like, because the thing that I learned is basically, I feel like everyone is pretty tense all the time and they don't even realize it. And I get this when I'm teaching my friend Warren, like if I see him punching and he looks really stiff, and I'm saying, like, look, if your goal right now is to like, I don't know, hold your hand out like this, you don't need to go like, you can just have it there, and it's the same thing as accomplished. So just having those lessons of like, oh, actually everything kind of doesn't take very much effort at all. Like opening like a really giant glass door at a building, you could be like, or like
Yeah.
putting a car trunk down like this. You could be like, or you could just be like, hands are here, and you just kind of like move your body down a little bit, and it'll just go because your body has all this weight to it that'll just do everything. And just so much of it is like, oh yeah, arms relaxed. Why am I not like this all the time? So then just the more I think about it, it's like, oh, I'll just even like be in the shower sometimes and be like, why am I so this should be the most relaxing place to be in. But why are my shoulders all weird?
So you must be taking those cold water showers. That's why you're not.
Well, actually, that's funny you say that, because that's like a good test of like being able to relax is like,
oh, dude,
if you're actually taking a cold shower and just be like,
all right, we're gonna unpack this.
All
Give me a second.
we're gonna unpack
this.
You're digging right into it. Right
I have something I want to get to
yeah.
first, because there's a perfect segue. You talking about tension, relaxation. One of the things that I want to tell all our listeners about, as somebody who has experienced martial arts, like it's part of my life. I look at a squirrel mentality, and I see that in people of the like everything that a squirrel does. There's 50% of it is I need to get away from danger, and 50% of it is goal. So like they take a couple steps, look around, couple more steps, hop, 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 hop. Then they finally get their nut, their acorn. You know what I mean? Then they go back. Then they go back and they put their acorn in the stash or whatever.
Yeah.
But in humans, it's the same thing. A lot of people are so afraid or so concerned about confrontation and danger that they spend a lot of their time going into a room and like looking around or like not feeling safe or staying to the edge or staying in their groups or always living themselves in a lifestyle where they're like trying to maintain safety, not because they can defend themselves, but because they can't, right? And so they're trying to do everything they can to avoid conflict. The people who don't look me in the eyes when I say hello or who try to just like act like something bad that's happening right next to them is totally not there. And they do the like ghost face, like dead ahead stare when literally two people right next to them are about to get into a fight. That like mentality of just, I'm so unsafe and so insecure in my ability to be safe that I'm always under stress. I'm always under tension.
Right.
What I found in martial arts is like, if trouble finds me, trouble's going to find me. I may not be prepared for that first punch, but I for damn sure have more experience and I will be more comfortable dealing with the rest of them than somebody who has no experience and is going to get punched anyway and then has no way or no ability or no understanding of combat, and then they still have to deal with those same next punches or that next conflict or the next danger. And so I feel like martial arts in general just allows me to live my life way more comfortably, because one of the biggest threats or fear of threats from somebody just having a bad day, want to take it out on me, somebody trying to rob me, I'm not saying I'm Superman or anything like that. I'm not saying I just go into every situation like a badass, like I'm straight out of Jedi Fallen Order. That's not me. What I'm saying is like I can live like any other animal than a squirrel who's like, or a rabbit who's like every moment is like predator, goal, and then book it. Like I don't have to go into a new room and be worried. I don't have to go, regardless of size and stature. Like I know that has something to do with it as well.
Yeah,
but
6'5".
I'm just saying,
black guy,
I'm so. But my background though of like being bullied and like always getting beat up all the time. You would think that I'd have the opposite effect.
Right.
But there's a calming sense that I get with at least knowing that like my bases are covered. I don't necessarily have a strategy, but I have training.
Right.
Like I have reflexes.
Right.
I have things that are just muscle memory, that it's not even like I got punched in the face and gave up. It's like I get punched, take the blow, figure out where the threat's coming from, and react. Like a lot of my fighting is reactionary. It's not even like, okay, I'm going to jab, and then I'm going to right. It's just like opening, bam. Punch coming, dock. You know what I mean? Like it's just muscle memory at this point. So I have not to brag, but there's just a sense of comfort in my lifestyle, peace.
Right.
And I don't go looking for trouble, but I have peace. I have way more peace.
And I think that comes along with training in martial arts. A lot of martial artists are like the calmest types of people. Of course, there are assholes who are with a short leash of ego and they're all looking for trouble. But those are the beginners, right? Once you get past that stage, martial arts teaches you a bunch of things, like what you're referring to, being used to or being comfortable with uncomfortable situations. That's what I've learned when I was growing up too. You know, it was my first time actually having to be in front of people to test for my belt. You know, knowing the pressure that comes with it, knowing what success and failure feels like, knowing what it's like to be praised, knowing what hard work leading to results feel like. Those are all my first times with martial arts before everything else, before getting my A in class or F in class, right? And I think a lot of the world now, people who are under a lot of stress, unfortunately don't have that advantage of being in situations, and even worse, avoiding situations completely, to not be used to that type of uncomfortability. And it causes a lot of problems. I think it causes a lot of issues between people themselves. They don't understand people, and they just either avoid or start shit, right? And everybody needs to get like into martial arts. And the buzzword nowadays is MMA. Is like, I've had someone told me, it's like, you do martial arts? It's like, oh yeah, I do. Do you do martial arts? It's like, no, I do MMA. It's like, you're a fucking idiot. Do you know what MMA stands for? You dumbass. But like, mixed martial arts was, the moniker occurred because people before attributed martial arts to one style, right? Structure. But before, it used to be just anything, right? Anything in martial arts. It needs to revert back to just martial arts. Yeah, because it's well known enough. Yeah, right? Martial arts. Just add an S, dude. Exactly. But like, I don't know how you guys feel about this, and maybe Derek, this is a question to you first. The onslaught of MMA being popular is great. It's great for the world to know that these are legitimate things. Because growing up, people made fun of us doing kung fu. Oh, you do kung fu, you do karate. Yeah. Then you kick them in the face, and they stop that shit. But now people are like, oh shit, you do kung fu, you do karate. It's a different story right now, right? With that comes with people kind of looking down on specialized martial arts. Like, I feel like a lot of mixed martial artists feels like just because you've been concentrating the last 20 years in kung fu and boxing that you're somehow inferior to now me having a hodgepodge of skills that is not developed. Like, do you get this sense, or am the only one in this?
No, that's definitely a thing. I mean, if you watch any videos on YouTube with any martial arts that aren't MMA, you're gonna see comments that are like, that wouldn't work in a real fight.
The most dangerous warriors in the world, all collected in the YouTube comment section.
I mean, there's also kind of bad attitudes on with some people where like, well, it's because MMA has rules and this thing's too deadly for MMA, which, there's a lot of puffing yourself up on for MMA and other people. So I think it's good that people are interested in martial arts, but there's definitely a lot of poo-pooing kung fu or karate or taekwondo. And I think people are measuring all the martial arts against maybe one standard or something like that. Like basically the MMA guys, what I get is they're saying, hey, what's this karate stuff? That's not good MMA. And it's like, well, yeah. They're basically saying MMA is the thing that you measure everything against. So of course something's not going to be good MMA because it's literally not trying to be that thing. It's like, no, this is something different. And I think that the thing that always comes to my mind is, I forget the exact line, but there's a scene in Fearless with Jet Li where he's talking to the karate practitioner. And the crux of his thing is that it's not the martial art, it's the person, which I think is where it should always be. Because, of course, different level of skill within the individual matters, and the attitude or that sort of thing. But someone might counter like, well, what if you took someone who took 5 years of MMA and 5 years of karate? And it's like, it's so hard to compare these things because there's just, it's a human activity. There's so much variation. How many days within that year did they train? What were they doing? Were they actually practicing with sparring? Because sometimes you're not doing sparring. Of course, if you're going to be practicing with another person a lot, then you're going to be better at doing that. Or if you're just alone and you're just making really amazing roundhouse kicks, you'll be good at that. One of the things that I'm learning now with my Sistema class is, because that's pretty much always with a partner. There's pretty much nothing that you can do by yourself. So I'm just learning about where my hands go when I'm trying to do something to the other person. Whereas Kung Fu before was mostly like forms and kicks, and we did like a little bit of sparring, but usually his mentality was like, practice for 10 years, then do some sparring. So then you can learn about like you're controlling yourself before you worry about like hitting someone else. Cause it's very old school. Cause like my Kung Fu Sifu, he spoke like half Chinese and half English. And he's pretty much exactly what you would picture, like this guy from mainland China. You go into the school, it's kind of like a little bit dingy. He's in his desk chair, his legs like on top of the desk. He's like smoking because of course he's smoking. Yeah. And, like he grew up doing martial arts because there's like nothing else to do where he grew up. But I'm getting a little bit away from the topic, but there is definitely like animosity between like the different styles, which, surprise, surprise, styles of combat and about fighting and defeating other people has people in it who are kind of toxic.
Yes. It's kind of losing the whole idea of what makes a martial art. I mean, of course, Bruce Lee was the pioneer in this idea, is like having no style as style. Yeah. But literally MMA is becoming a style, having no style as style. Like now they're kind of poo-pooing on all the other martial arts, which is what it was trying to avoid, right? Yeah. The idea is that there is no school or single school that is better than the other. But to say that MMA fighters are better than any other martial arts, kind of walking the same thing. And just to quote, I'm going to throw a bunch of Bruce Lee quotes here.
Go for it.
Because you kind of remind me of Bruce Lee quote saying, like, before I did martial arts or something to that nature, a punch was just a punch. After I did martial arts, a punch wasn't just a punch. But after I mastered martial art, a punch was just a punch. So I feel like every martial artist in any style at a certain point becomes free of that style, right? At a certain point, they break free and they become their person and they integrate who they are as a person into their fighting style. Because as you're training, you're just following the rules and getting used to the system. Even if MMA, right? Maybe you're combining a bunch of systems, like when you're on the ground, you go to jiu-jitsu. When you're on standing, you implement a lot of Muay Thai boxing or boxing themselves and, all that stuff. So you're switching modes, but there are rules or like best practices that you're following still. Yeah. But it is only in a fight, as a fighter, where you kind of just forget all the rules and just react, right? Yeah. And just mostly rely on instincts and what is best for that situation. And I feel like every style has that point of like, how do I react to a situation?
So I think we can unpack the argument right here and kind of just put a stake through it and send this podcast to everybody. Yeah. I'm not saying I'm the be all end all, but let's just be analytical about it. I feel like mixed martial arts is literally going the path of being a jack of all trades. Because if you look at a fight, ruled fighting within a combat system keeps fights in that system, keeps fight in those rules. And so I can see why someone says MMA is the most effective, because they're thinking in street fight scenario, it could be standing up, could then go to being in a clinch, then go to being on the ground, could then go to being someone has your back. Like the fight evolves. Yeah. It takes place in many different stages and different scenarios.
But that's in a ring though. Like,
but even outside of a ring, like MMA,
outside of a ring, dude, I am going for the feet stomp.
But that's fine.
Eye gouge.
That's fine.
And the nut shot, dude.
That's fine. I get what I'm illustrating though is illustrating is literally in MMA, you're training for multi-situational fighting. Sure. Right? WTF Taekwondo, you're training for kicking hogus and tapping head.
Right.
I'm not trying to
but they're mostly concentrated
exactly.
on
when you're looking at a combat system that's fighting within a rule set, it's training to be effective in certain situations. I will say mixed martial arts is training to be effective multi-situational. So I can see the argument of somebody saying, this is why MMA is the best, yada, yada. I shit on that argument by saying MMA, you're being a jack of all trades. You're trying to prepare yourself as best you can for whatever situation the fight ends up being in. Is it a grapple? Is it striking? Is there distance? Am I chasing you? Are you chasing me? Am I on my back? Am I on your back? So I get the strength of why being multidimensional is important, especially when you're talking about real life scenarios. Completely fine. Now, I have no problem with somebody who like wants to learn how to weaponize their hands and studies boxing. Yeah. Someone who wants to weaponize their feet studies Taekwondo. Somebody who wants to weaponize grappling studies wrestling, studies Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Somebody who wants to study lethality and goes for like Krav Maga. Like I understand the benefits of why other systems exist, and I have no problem with anybody who's like a fucking black belt times 2, 3, 4 in any of those systems. sure, they might be a master of that thing, but who knows what they also do in the event that the fight goes to the ground, in the event that there's a clinch, in the event that there's way too many variables to just assume that because they've studied a lot of boxing, that's all that they're going to do if you were to get in a street fight with that person.
Right.
You're opening yourself up for an opportunity for an ass whooping because anybody dedicated enough to learn that much about one thing, who knows? Bruce Lee was so unassuming. He's like the best example. Mm-hmm. Everybody I know, without knowing Bruce Lee's resume, tenure, with him and his shirt on, you see 5'6" skinny Asian dude with a badass face who has an attitude and like thinks he's the shit or whatever, right? And so you go knock the drink out of his hand. You're being a bully to him. And then Bruce Lee lights you up before you can even respond. Was it Jeet Kune Do? Who knows? Was it Taekwondo? Was it Wushu? Was it? It doesn't fucking matter. Yeah. This guy was dedicated to learning how to weaponize himself, regardless of having a system or not having a system. So, to end the argument, in my opinion, respect anybody who's interested in learning about fighting because there's something about them that shows that they're dedicated to a pursuit of a martial art, which is... I respect that, right? Mixed martial arts, I get it. You can't be like, oh, I learned everything. It's not that you've learned everything. You're learning how to be effective in as many situations as possible. I also respect that. But I will not look at the two systems and be like, one is better than the other, because you making that statement, clearly you have some sort of criteria where you're elevating why you think mixed martial arts is better. And I can flip that on the other side and say, okay, you're 10 feet away from me. Show me your Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Exactly.
I'm on top of you. Show me your Taekwondo. You know what I mean? Like, show me your MMA. You're way over there. Exactly. You know what I mean? Like, I'm faster than you. I can literally outrun you. Like, you have to take the idea of a mixed martial arts and just say that, like, look, situational, there could be one that's better than the other. Like, I'm literally on top of you, raining down blows. If I never studied boxing, I never studied Muay Thai, I'm like Dan Severn. I'm like palm slapping. Like Dan Severn had problems in the UFC in the early days. He didn't really want to strike. He didn't know how. He was a champion. He was great. Awesome wrestler. Like legitimate awesome wrestler. I would never fight Dan Severn in his prime, even in his old age. Never. But situationally, I can see where he's got clear advantages, and then in others, I can see where like he's fish out of water. So I guess that's my way of saying it doesn't matter. Don't waste your time fucking arguing with commenters what you think is better or worse. Because once you're in a situation, you'll see what was more effective in that situation in that moment. I would not take an Ong Bak knee to the face from anybody. I will avoid that at all costs. I will not take a crescent kick, axe kick, fucking side kick from any Taekwondo person. I will avoid that at all costs. Even as an MMA person, I've been trained to handle situations, but the easiest way to not get fucked up is to avoid situations. So that's my 2 cents.
I completely agree with you there. I think
also,
you go ahead, Larry.
I was gonna say, like, something you learn pretty quickly is just like it doesn't take that much to hurt a person. Like you can get punched accidentally, but like, oh, you know, like that's a big thing I'm learning. But another thing I want to say is I think there's differences between like talking about fighters and martial artists. And what I mean is, I think like MMA people, I assume they're trained to be as effective as possible, as fast as possible, because you want to like have a career and do all this while you're young. But like, you know, what's the longevity of practicing that way? You know, there's certain one other good lesson that. Yeah, exactly. One other good lesson that I had from my Sifu was that he would say that, you know what, there are some things that if you drill every single day, like hours and hours and hours, it's still going to take a certain amount of time. It's not like you can take the fast route by exercising even more and more and more, because so much of it is mental. And like there are a lot of things that our bodies just will not do because mentally we haven't quite figured those things out yet. So a thing that I say to Warren a lot is like, look, your body would be doing what I'm telling you to do if not for this, because there's something in there, either fear or hesitation or the way you're interpreting what you're seeing. It's like just not correct. So my friend Julio from my Kung Fu class, he used to say to me whenever I was doing something wrong, he would just look at me and say, just do exactly what I tell you to do. because what he could tell that what I was doing was looking at what he was doing and making my own interpretation, saying, okay, this is what he's doing. He's moving this muscle here and this thing, and it would be totally wrong because I didn't have the like perception to interpret what he's doing. But like when I think about like fighter versus martial artist, I think, MMA, octagon, bloody up the other person. But like when I think of like martial artist, I think someone who's like doing it for decades. Yeah. And when you like watch their body moving, you're like, how is the body doing that? It's like looking at like a dancer. The first time I went to my kung fu class and saw like not even my students, but just the other students, they were just doing forms, and I was just like it was just so fluid. I just couldn't understand what was happening. And that's when I was like, okay, I gotta be at this school, because it was basically like watching a movie. Like, oh my god, it's like Jet Li in real life, but no camera in between us. But when I think about martial arts, because I'm not a fighter, I'm not thinking about getting into fights. I'm thinking about like quality of life and just like being kind of relaxed and kind of smooth in real life. I don't really have a point there, but that's just some thoughts.
Well, I promised that we were going to unpack this next topic about 15 minutes ago, the cold shower mental approach. So Brandon and I have had some couple of talks about the advantages of cold shower. So let's tie that in. You guys both sound like you have experience.
I'll start it off by saying the Navy SEALs do it, all right? Okay. Will Hoff. So this is a religion I've been trying to start. Basically, maybe rule two
the cold shower Jesus.
Yeah, cold shower is the very first one. Like all I do are cold showers. I don't even go hot anymore. And it's I do it one in the morning, one at night, and I do it for like 3 to 5 minutes, right? Do all my business in there really quick. Basically, legit business, just shampooing. But basically, the idea is that it wakes you up. And I've been arguing with Larry with this because I think it's a great way to start your day, but also it keeps you awake because when you go in there, there's this constant fear because you're already imagining the cold water hitting your skin, your body, right? And you're freezing up. And so you got to get past that. So every time I turn on the shower, there's a good like 2-3 minutes of prepping myself up at the beginning. Now I just walk in. But that constant reminder of fear is a great way to attack life. Like everything that I do throughout the day is the same walking down that mentality. It's like, all right, this is actually, pretty scary, or like I got to prep myself, or I see myself doing it, but then, I got to really push myself to do it. That's what I'm preparing every day, every morning, every night. And so I'm already seeing like the amplification, the benefits in everything that I'm doing, where I'm not as scared to do it the very first time. And that's all just from taking a fucking cold shower. So I think it's like very valuable, but it also does other things too. Like your body gets used to the cold more. You don't get sick as much. There's a lot of benefits to having cold showers. But I learned that from recently, just reinvigorating, but a lot of that comes from like a lot of the stuff that I learned when I was growing up as a martial artist is, you're always learning new forms, new jumps, new kicks, new tricks. And a lot of that is walking through that fear first before you actually do it, but you apply it to life. There's a lot of things and new things that we're always doing. And the constant thing that keeps popping up first is stop. Right? It's always the stop. Don't do it. And so this is something I've told Larry, like, you need to take this cold shower movement, man, because it is very applicable. It's something you see benefits right away.
Let me ask you this then. Yeah. Do you feel like now you're at the point where you've got it? Like you've learned the lesson? Can you go back to hot showers?
Go to hot showers? So let's
like, okay, I get it. Cool.
Well, I mean, the hot showers, obviously, there's a lot of health benefits. If you go in the sauna, if you go to the steam room, especially before you go to sleep, it relaxes the body. You go to sleep a lot faster. And so there's an extreme benefit to both sides. But for that reason, if you were to take a hot shower in the morning, right, your mind goes in shutdown, your relaxed mode, right? It's not alert, right? You're more unwilling to try new things, in my opinion. But that's why it's great for at nighttime. So I would maybe start my shower cold and do a little hot and then back to cold if you guys want to mix it up like that.
Oh, Jesus.
But like, what's your like, Derek? What? First of all, Derek, what is your experience with cold showers?
So I'm still starting warm because I still like a warm shower, but I'll finish it cold, and I don't go for like 3 or 5 minutes. I'm just like, okay, my face, my body, and everything, all sides, I'll finish it cold. But the thing, this kind of good segue is to something else I learned in martial arts, is breathing is really important. So like the first time you try to do cold shower, just breathe as much as possible. Yeah. Like, because like the thing that I'm learning, especially with the Systema, is where breathing is really important. I mean, it's important in all of them, but Systema focuses a lot on breathing. But the thing that I realized is that I think a lot of us, or at least again me, find myself in just everyday situations where I realize that, oh my God, why am I not breathing right now? I should be breathing. So from the shower example, cold water hits, you're like, you're like, ah,
sounds about right.
Because if you're gonna be like this, then it's only gonna get worse. You know,
you gotta relax. Yeah.
You have to breathe. I mean, you think about, there are very few things that I think people think about that sort of like fast breathing. The only thing I could think of is like classes when women's like pregnant. You know, they're like, breathe. So then if this is like the most painful thing that humans endure, then we could probably take some lessons from this, that breathing is important. But like the thing I take from everyday life is that there are just certain things that we do where we find ourselves like straining. So for example, like you're reaching for something that's out of reach. You're like, you know, and usually that's what we do. Or maybe even like we sit down, we're like, you know, if you've ever done that when you're sitting down. That's the exact opposite of what you should be doing in that situation. You should be breathing more because it's painful or something. So now I try to catch myself in those situations. So instead of going, I go, and then it's like, it's nice and clear. The analogy I use is that it's basically like if you're holding it in, you're like a balloon. So you're like picturing, like you try to like picture like bending a balloon that's really inflated, where it's like it's all light and loose after that, and then everything's easier. So I'm always trying to tell Warren, I'm saying just breathe more, because I'll see him punching or something like that. He'd be like,
I'll be like, very.
Are you breathing? I'm not gonna carry you home.
Yeah.
You know, just breathe. Like, and you see like boxers and stuff, like the breathing through the nose, I think, with like all the punches. It's like, but so I don't know. Back to the cold shower. I start warm and then I go cold, and it's pretty refreshing. It takes a while, but breathing is really important.
But it's very true. Like how you approach in the shower, like when you're super like stiff, is pretty much how you approach like new situations, right? Like how do you approach new situation that is scary? Do you come in and relax? You know, you anticipate. This is the type of training. There's a reason why it traces back in mainland China. Old school martial arts, they're taking showers under the waterfall, right? There's a lot of benefits to it. Yeah, exactly, dude. But that is what it is, because the reason why I do it 3 to 5 is because I want my body to get used to the cold. Where, you know, how you would jump in the pool or the ocean, your body matches up with the temperature at a certain point. So I stay there just enough where I'm like, it doesn't bother anymore, and then I get out. That's when I get out.
All right. I'm going to weigh in with this. For me, I personally don't believe I have a fear of new situations. I actually enjoy new challenges or things that I don't know, right? So like I'm actually excited by a new opportunity to, hey, this is a new experience. Have you ever done this before? Hell no, let's go see it, right? Because that adds more memories to my life that I can call out. When you have 5 days in a row that are exactly the same, those 5 days just fly by. And when you're old, you can't really recall any unique experience from that. So I love like unique experience, new shit. I already know the outcome of what's going to happen if I take a cold shower. I'm going to be miserable. You know what I mean?
I'm telling you, man. You got to try it for 5 days straight.
Well,
what do you have to lose? You have the rest of your life to take off showers.
I do have, I guess, a pat on the back for you both for even trying this. I am very familiar with the body's adaptabilities. I know that, like, you want your body to be pushed and pulled out of comfort zones and force it to be able to react, because that's actually better for you long term.
Yes.
So I see benefits there of like, hey, I'm forcing my body to use this thing. I don't want it to forget about doing this thing. I don't want to ever get so comfortable that, let's say I'm unfortunately in this situation, my body can't handle it.
Of course.
You know, I'm not used to running. I'm not used to lifting or exerting force. I'm not used to carrying. I'm not used to
Yeah,
So
that's a
I can
great
see
point.
that.
Like in this country where we're comfortable mostly, right? We're always warm because we have the clothes to put on if we are cold. The survivability of the modern man or woman is way lower in other countries or even back in the old times in primitive days because our body is not used to danger, right? So being able to adapt to uncomfortable situations and training your body, you have a longer chance to actually mentally and physically get through that.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
we're kind of becoming a society of maintaining comfort zone is like the status quo. Like we want to stay comfortable. We want to be warm when it's cold, or we want to be cold when it's too hot.
Yeah.
And we have ways of like modulating.
Yes.
We want to eat the foods we want. We want rest. We want fun. We want to like we have these very narrow comfort zones because we're doing everything we can to not have to stretch that. But imagine, and like again, this is benefits to you guys and kudos, where I'm not yet on that journey, but I can at least recognize what I see, right? The more you go outside of your comfort zone with a high frequency, the more large your comfort zone becomes.
Yeah.
If you can handle cold showers, then really any shower is now a shower.
Yeah.
You're not complaining like, oh my God, this is an insufferable life because I can't afford my water heating. Oh my God, I have to run for a mile. I can't do this. This is an insufferable life. Well, what happens when your life depends on it? You have to run for a mile. And you're not used to that.
Exactly.
So I can see the benefits of stretching what your body is capable of. That's why we're having this talk about martial arts, adding in cold showers, or any sort of like 2 steps even outside of your comfort zone is life beneficial. I recognize that 100%.
It's basically all health and fitness is kind of pointing towards holding back from comfort, right? Fasting, intermittent fasting is a huge thing now, but it's just back to the old days where you didn't have food at every reach, right? People literally had to eat within a 2-hour window. But that trains the body to what it's really good at, being used to the situation. Actually, it has long-term benefits. Not everybody had warm showers back then. Now get used to the damn cold shower because it actually benefits your body in many other ways too.
Our bodies have so many features, right? Like cars, it's like all I do is put gas in and drive. But what about the heated seats? What about the recliner? What about lumbar? Exactly. Your bodies can actually do so many amazing things that a lot of people don't even try it out because it's a step outside of their comfort zone, and they feel like their life goal is to just stay in the comfort zone instead of expand the comfort zone. I think if you can expand the comfort zone, you'll probably do a lot better for yourself, for your life experiences, for your enjoyment, but also for your sustainability.
And so this is my last question to throw to all you guys, right? Knowing what you know now about martial arts, kind of playing around with different styles in your career, if you were to really break it down, and of course there's different application, but let's go back to just like the primitive days of why they created martial arts, to fight, right? In case you have to fight. What would be the top 2 to 3 styles that you say, hey, you should have this in your repertoire to actually be able to survive in a street fight? What would you say, Derek?
I don't really. So I mean, the style that I'm taking right now, Sistema, is basically for that. Like they say, oh, it's Russian special forces is taught this sort of thing. And you can go to YouTube, Sistema. You see a lot of people poo-pooing it because it's really not cinematic martial art. Like there's a lot of martial arts where it's like, okay, that's a really hard punch, that's a hard kick. But like the thing with Sistema, which I like, is it kind of also works with that relaxation thing. And the way it works is basically your body is relaxed all the time and you try to resist as little as possible. So for example, someone punches you, like here, you try not to be like, like that. You try to be like, and then you try to like give them what they want. And what happens is that like, it's a little bit like that. It's very disorienting to kind of like get exactly what you want, but then suddenly they like adjust a little bit. So basically the thing that I say about whenever my instructor demonstrates something is that I just basically feel like he's just playing with my body. He just pokes my elbow, my shoulder, my hip, and then all of a sudden I'm on the ground. And it's like really disorienting and confusing. And it's like a totally different.
Need to gain weight, dude.
It's a totally different mentality for like how the fight ends. And because I didn't really have a strategy with my other kung fu, also because we didn't do much sparring, but my understanding was that it's probably going to be like, okay, just try to hit the person as hard as possible, get that hit in, whatever. Whereas this one, it's kind of like, just go with the flow and kind of move them around and confuse them. And then, certain joint locks and stuff like that they'll just end up on the ground if you do it correctly. And it never feels aggressive. I'm never like on the ground and be like, ugh, ugh. It's more like, what just happened? And from what I've seen, that's pretty cool because like I'm not an aggressive person, and if I were to like take someone down, I would like for it to be in that sort of style where I don't know, it's a bar or something like that, someone tries to do something, and then I just basically sort of confuse them, hit them in certain key spots, just try things out, and then all of a sudden like they're sort of diffused. Like that's a good word for it, is that with the style system, a lot of it is about like de-escalation and kind of diffusing their aggression. Because the thing is like, if someone is like this and they're like, let's do this, and you're kind of trading blows, the thing that my instructor taught me is that you basically can get energy or give energy to the other person by being like all intense like that. But if someone's kind of not giving that back to you, it's like kind of hard to kind of maintain that kind of sort of attitude. So I think Systema is pretty cool. But again, I'm not a street fight person, so I can't say. But it's pretty versatile too, because they also do ground stuff as well, which this is the first time I've learned any sort of ground related things. And a lot of it is about like constantly moving and getting out of a situation. Like we learn about rolls and just basically never getting stuck anywhere. So there's always a situation where like someone has your arm twisted in a way, there's something to do for that. If someone's like, attacking your feet, there's something to do for that. So I think it's pretty cool.
All right, I'll jump in next. If I was designing Larry Charles, the like $6 million man martial artist from beginning, knowing what I know now, taking out my interests, right, or what like I personally am interested in, if I were to just magic wand myself, I think what I would probably do, and this is just me, the three things I would pick, I would say, for me, I would cover the biggest threats of a fight that I think of. I think there's striking involved. I think there's a grappling aspect, and then I think that there's like maybe choke, finisher, like especially now because a lot of people know those types of things. Even the first two is like a great way to cover all bases. But you're not going to get everything there. Yeah. But I guess if I was plotting it out, I'd probably say like actual Thai kickboxing, because I think every part of your body that can be weaponized, they do this. Fist, elbow, shins, knees, forearms, you know what I mean? Like multiple ways to strike and be very effective. I don't see a lot of like high flash or like unnecessary. It's like, no, this is an effective elbow, this is an effective side kick, this is an effective jab, kick, roundhouse. So I think striking for me, I really like the idea of like getting really good at kickboxing. I would for sure study wrestling. There's a lot of grappling involved, especially in just random encounter fights. Sometimes people will bum rush you. Sometimes you are locked up in some sort of a clinch and you don't want to throw a knee. You just want to get them to the ground and take away all of their power to strike you. So I think like a good wrestling background helps. And then, of course, I love the idea of like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, just because like the philosophy behind why that even exists, to see like Helio Gracie taking on, his sons and like whooping their ass, you know what I mean? 70 years old, like still teaching them stuff about getting chokes or neutralizing their positions or advancing his own positions. And I'm no expert in any of these, like by far. But if I was redesigning myself, I would probably do like one emphasis on striking, one emphasis on grappling, and then like a choke submission type. And I'd feel very confident with that base. That would be me.
Okay. I actually am very similar to what you're saying. Striking game. I think with striking game, it'd be good to kind of go with something that has a sparring emphasis to it. Muay Thai boxing does a lot of sparring sessions, boxing too, but boxing does it without the legs, which I feel is kind of disadvantageous. So Muay Thai, I would actually sign off on that. Wrestling is actually pretty important. I think wrestling is actually more important than striking, to be honest. Being able to get around the strikes and then actually take them down will immobilize a lot of fighters or anybody in the streets, like being able to use the ground as a weapon. And then finally getting to the jiu-jitsu part, right? The locking or submission moves. That would pretty much cover all the bases in a bar fight. But to be honest, without all the rules, dude, eye gouge, nut shot, feet stomp. Yeah, that's all you really need to do. And then like maybe like a strike to the throat. Like if I were to design martial arts and you come into my studio, dude, it would be just like nut shot.
There's 4 basic moves to the Brandon martial art. You get your black belt in 3 weeks.
Yeah, and everything else is dancing around, right? You might throw in some boxing footwork there, do some jump roving, but it's just to get to the nut shot. Or some distractions, some feinting up here, and the nut shot. Because that really is what it boils down to in a street fight. That's the one thing that I feel the MMA movement is moving too far for. They're trying to advertise as the everything street fight, but it's not. It isn't. You got to remember,
MMA is like a gentleman's street fight.
Yeah, it's a very gentleman's street fight, right? There's rules in place. It's not a survivor type of street fight. If you're talking about street fight, it's WWE. I've seen some nasty stuff, right? WWE, right, where you can grab props and chairs and you knock that motherfucker down.
He said props.
Yeah. But like this is years of doing martial arts. You're hearing from years of martial artists, and this is what I boil it down to, right? Nut shot, eye gouge, throat punch, and then just work on those legs to run away in case things go bad. It's like just be really good at running and sprinting out of there. Maybe some parkour if you want to do some Jackie Chan stuff.
I want to disclaimer this whole podcast by saying this one last thing for me. This isn't like Expendables. This isn't Bloodsport. This isn't Ralph Macchio shit. That movie shit is very entertaining. But let's talk about real life for a moment. Me studying martial arts and everything that I love about it, it's great fitness. Sure, like I'm getting some self-discipline. I'm achieving goals. And like I'm getting gratification and feedback by getting belt ranks. Yeah, sure. All that self-serving stuff. I personally love it. But the real thing is, this is real life scenario, and we're in a mostly civilized society until it isn't. I just want to be able to handle myself when it isn't, right? I don't go out looking for fights. I don't go out looking to prove. I don't have anything to prove. I don't have anything to like, I'm going to get nothing out of like bullying people, and I don't like bullies in general. I think that, but they exist, and I know that they exist. All of my martial arts training is just to give me peace and comfort while I live life, keep me in shape. And if things go left, I'm prepared to handle left. That's it. I don't want anyone listening to this podcast to go think like, I need to go be a badass and learn all this stuff so then I can prey on weak people or so that I can do X, Y, Z, X, Y, Z. If you have any self-respect for yourself or your martial art, you'll know that pursuing it is a fantastic journey full of wisdom, strength, encouragement, support, all of that stuff. Never should you be looking to like, I used to be the guy that get picked on. Now I'm the one. Now I'm the alpha wolf, and I'm going to assert myself any chance I get. That's not what we're trying to do here. So the breakthrough that I want you guys to achieve, or want the listeners to know about, is go look into a martial art. It's very beneficial for you, both for survival skills and for health. And definitely, I do not condone or endorse anybody who wants to weaponize without reason or cause.
Right. Traditional martial arts, this is the one benefit I feel that still is dominating versus like new systems or MMA. It's like the new systems in MMA are really concentrated on just the output of physical abilities, but the philosophy behind it and being patient and all these things that come with traditional martial art is, I feel like, is vastly disappearing from. Exactly. Right? Because I remember when I was sitting with my Sifu Don and Sifu Martin, they were of Hispanic origin, which is pretty funny, but they were good. They were really good. But my grandmaster Sifu was like straight up traditional Chinese. But like there were times we would be in class and we would just sit there and talk about martial arts and things like that, right? Of course, I used to go 2 hours every day, so we weren't being cheated, right? Which is your first thought, is like, what the fuck is this?
TV. Substitute teachers.
Yes, But those are the type of things I feel if I were walking to a wushu class, taekwondo class, an MMA class especially, I will never see. Like, you're not really talking to the kids. And maybe it is very up to the individual coach or sifu that you're with that actually feels that it's important or not. But I think average with all these schools, like there's like 10 or 100 times more amount of schools now in the last 10, 12 years. The concentration is just like get a massive amount of people of interest to just teach them a few things and let them leave. There isn't like this relationship of like, hey, you need to respect all elders. You need to, martial arts is kind of keep you calm. You'll be the last person in the fight that you should be fighting, you know, all those different things, you know, what it means to actually punch, what it means to be soft and then firm at the release. You know, I don't feel like there's enough of that nowadays. Maybe it's, I'm wrong, but I don't see much of that as being an emphasis, because MMA, when you watch MMA and you watch UFC and all these guys, it's all about the fight. And it's less, I think it would be more compelling and I think responsible to kind of talk about or dedicate some segment to what it really means to be a martial artist, you know?
I think there's sorry to jump back. I think there's people out there that also agree that would love like a mixed martial arts approach to their fighting styles or to their like self-defense strategies, who would also like the like philosophy, who would also like the like actual structure behind why you're defending yourself this way, who don't give a shit about the sensationalized violence in mixed martial arts. The problem that we're faced with is like UFC is also a business. And so like you know what I mean? And
they want to see the fights.
Exactly. So, Mr. Derek Lieu, do you have one last nugget you want to drop on the folks?
Yeah, one thing I was thinking is the reason that I love martial arts, one of many, but the other reason I think that people should do it is that it's a really good way to it's a good way to get fit because it's working towards a goal. Like there's so many different things in any given martial art, like punching, kicking, grappling, whatever, that when you're doing it, you realize, oh my God, I should do more crunches or I should do more squats or something like that. And it gives you purpose to those kind of boring exercise things, like, you know, using weights. Whereas if without martial arts, I wouldn't really be inclined to go to a gym and do those things because it's just like, what am I doing this for? But if I have an actual thing where I'm thinking, okay, wow, if my abs are better, then I can kick faster or something like that. Or I can kind of maneuver quicker if my legs are stronger, that sort of thing. So I really think that it's good to do martial arts to just have those things that you can work on, and then all the kind of boring exercise things, you just end up wanting to do them because like you see the results, like you hear the pad get hit harder when you punch it. You're like, yes, the thing worked because of this other thing that I did. It doesn't feel as much like a grind, like, okay, let's do some more weights or something like that. And also there's the accountability of just like having a class that you have to show up to, which is a really, really big part of it, which is, I think, probably most of the reason why a lot of people have personal trainers, just so then that someone will hold them accountable. So if you can find a good martial arts school, then I think it's really good for that reason. And the advice that I give people is to find a place where the instructor is really, really good. Like like when I went in, I thought about style. I thought, what's the style that I want to do? But I came out thinking, okay, as long as the instructor is good, then that's amazing. If it's a style that you're interested in, but the instructor is bad, then that's going to be a terrible experience. And also, I'm biased towards schools which don't have belts because there are a lot of schools, like the whole business model of martial arts teaching is really difficult. And a lot of schools do like belt tests and stuff like that as a way to augment the school. Like you have to pay like $60 something like that to take the test, and then maybe you fail, you have to take it again, something like that. So like my kung fu school was just like, you know, pretty much like in Karate Kid when he's like, what kind of belt do you have? And he's like, JC Penney, 1095 or something. You know, so I think that it's also like it makes a different mentality with the students when you don't have levels. Everyone knows how good you are, and you kind of hold yourself accountable in that way.
All right.
So, again, I have to thank you very much for being a podcast black belt. So thanks for coming on here and giving our users and listeners your time, your knowledge, and your expertise. I can't wait to see what things you do in your own martial arts career. I'm so happy to see that you have a student. And I hope that even becomes a path that you continue to explore, because you have a great way of explaining things, and I can just imagine, learning martial arts from you would probably be awesome as well. So shout out to your first student who made you a teacher. Shout out to you for taking that step. That is an invisible wall that you broke through. You literally told us the moment where he was like, "Do you teach?" And you could have said, "No, I don't," and stayed in the comfort zone, or you said, "Yes, I do," and you had a breakthrough. So that's what we're all about here. Invisible Walls, the podcast about breakthrough.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you, Derek, again. If you want to chat with Derek, go to his Twitter account at Derek Lieu, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna throw this up. I'm gonna throw this up just so I don't butcher it. Let's make sure.
There we go.
There we go.
And then hide the.
Here we go. Oh,
yeah.
Oh, there we go. All right. So thank you for joining us, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome.
Always, man. I'm sure we'll see you again at some point, and let us know how we can help you in any way.
Sure.
All right.
Cool. Thanks.
See ya.